I'm on day 15 of my most recent breakup, and these are some of the things that I learned. You cannot force growth out of someone who doesn't see what they're doing wrong and isn't willing to learn or grow as a person. It could be anything. It could be something in your relationship. It could be them as a person. If they're not the kind of person who wants to grow and change, you're never going to be able to force that out of them. And the biggest thing that comes with that is that breakups are not bad. People kind of villainize breakups, but breakups aren't a bad thing. They just mean that you're not staying in something that isn't aligned with you. Because the more you settle for something that doesn't work for you, the longer you're going to postpone finding something that does work for you. You are way closer to finding the right person for you if you're willing to try something and end it if it doesn't work. I don't just mean like end it because things get hard. Like, when you have really big value differences, it doesn't make sense sometimes to stay in it, and it's okay if you leave it. Most recent ex and I had very different values on racism, and he was a straight white male who just couldn't understand the concept of racism. That's racist! Which is not his fault, and like there's nothing I could do about it. That's kind of a value that I don't want to settle on.
That's the latest thing, isn't it? Everybody's a racist!
Well, it sounds to me like the idea of a man who sees the world for what it actually is instead of being a mindless drone was an obvious turnoff for you, and you chose righteous indignation over trying to listen to another dude who thinks for himself instead of a mindless drone. But here's the problem. You're trying to justify your impulsive actions by thinking you're going to find a good-looking, confident man who also shares your bonkers political beliefs, and you're under the assumption that those men are in abundance. I hate to break it to you, they're really not. But you know what is? Countless simps you'll never respect who will gladly parrot your woefully ill-informed talking points that you'll gladly take a spot in the friend zone as you desperately search for the impossible. Now you're 15 days into your coping session, which is next to nothing. You got years of cope ahead of you, sister.
So if you choose to break up over things like that, it doesn't mean that you haven't tried. Maybe you have tried, but things like that don't necessarily change, and it's not your job to try and change them, because if they're not willing to grow or learn, they're not willing to grow or learn, and that's okay. That's their decision. Another thing that I learned is that a lot of the times we wait until we find someone else before we break up with the person because we're so scared of being alone. But what I found is genuinely, like, when you break up with a person, so many more people come in. Like, it's almost like you're telling the universe that you have the space now and the people do come. And maybe it'll take time. Maybe that's just you needing time to heal. But the only way to make room for someone else is to let go of what isn't working for you. A breakup does not mean that you failed. It just means that you're not willing to settle for less than what you actually want. So if a relationship didn't work, don't be hard on yourself and be like, oh, I'm not good enough, or like, I'm never going to be with someone again. You literally are courageous enough to leave something that isn't working for you to find something that is going to be working for you. And that's going to pay off.
You have failed conclusively. It's over. And there is nothing that you can do here in this room that can turn that around.
Yeah, but that's just it. You didn't try. You pretty much gave this guy an ultimatum. Either blindly agree with you or else you're going to leave him. It's impossible to go on a healing journey when you've done nothing to damage yourself, but that's only because you were already broken, and that's not his fault. This idea that there will always be someone better for you makes about as much sense as assuming that you can leave $200 in cash on your front doorstep and expect it to still be there as you go to a yoga class that you've been ignoring for the last 8 months. And you're acting like putting that money there was a brave thing to do, but it was reckless and pointless. You left a perfectly good guy for shallow reasons, and now you're trying to pep yourself up with cope. It's not going to work. About 6 months from now, you're going to be complaining about how many first dates you've been on, and we will be here to laugh at you and your obvious failure at life.
No one makes friends with a failure. Okay? You understand?
Hey men, I fear that you're not very good at dating, and so I'm going to give you the perfect recipe on how to plan 4 good dates. Okay, date number 1 needs to be seated where you're making eye contact with each other at either a bar or a restaurant. Okay, no coffee, it needs to be at nighttime. You are making eye contact, you're asking good questions. Okay, this date needs to not be longer than 2 hours. You need to build some excitement. Let there be some imagination when it's done, okay? Date number 2 is where you're gonna do an activity where you're side by side. Okay, date number 1, eye to eye. Date number 2, side by side. This is like a museum, an arcade, mini golfing. Okay, you get the interaction, the personality coming out, and that's fun.
Nope. That would be a waste of time.
I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but the men out there you're trying to reach aren't listening to you. They really don't have to. The men in your life fall into 2 categories, the men you want and the men you don't. The men you want don't need help from you. The ones you don't want will be listening intently while you condescendingly talk down to them and give them the impression that if they listen to you, then you'll be interested. But we all know the truth. That's just not happening. They'll say there's no romantic spark, chemistry, or they're just plain boring. Besides, the men you want aren't willing to waste their precious tokens by paying for you and your obvious lackluster skill when it comes to skee ball. And even if you were good at that game, you'd waste your prize tickets on something dumb. So there's really no point in inviting you to partake in the game of Shoguns.
Date number 3 needs to be romantic in nature, and you need to get dressed up, you need to bring flowers, you need to be making a reservation. Okay, you're raising the stakes of like, okay, we've already spent 2 dates together and I really like you, so therefore I'm gonna shell out some romantic energy. Okay, date number 4, here's the thing, this is where you can be casual. Okay, grabbing coffee, running an errand, like going grocery shopping, going to the farmer's market. This is where you should know if you want to do daily fun little tasks with them. And then by date 4, you should know if you want to date this person romantically. I think you should give it those 4 dates before you decide if you like or don't like somebody romantically. Of course, date 1 has to go well for you to get to date 4, but that's the recipe.
Nobody cares what you think.
Well, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster if you ask me. You're acting like men operate under a collective hive mind much like you. You're acting like you're an accurate representation for all women everywhere, and men don't think that way. And just blindly acting like they do is just plain insulting. You have no business telling men how to think because men you want think for themselves, but that's not really the point here. You're acting like it's the man's obligation to somehow woo you into romance, but that's almost impossible if you're not interested in him. So there's no real point in trying to do all of these things. You're obviously trying to tell men how to date you, which means that you have been choosing horribly, and that's not our fault. You spent years ignoring us and then blaming us for your lack of inability to find a man. And that's why a majority of the men just walked away, leaving you with the men you find undesirable and those who just want to sleep with you, and that is all on you, sister.
You're welcome. Hey, you're welcome. Hey, don't mention it. Use that freedom in any way you like.
I get a lot of people ask me, okay, like, what are your standards and, like, what are you looking for? I am the standard. I do as I say. I take care of my appearance. I take care of my body. I take care of my health. I take care of my finances. I make sure, like, I'm provided for. I'm creating a life that I've always wanted. That is what I'm looking for in a guy. Like, it's not that I'm looking for something that's outside of me.
Liar, liar, liar.
I am the standard, and that's why they say when you set standards, you can't set a standard that you don't already have yourself. You know what I'm saying? So when girls are like, I want a rich man, like he has to have money. Okay, do you have money? Provide that for yourself, because then this ties back into attachment. If he has something that you don't have that you need, babe, you can do that yourself. So yeah, those are my standards. I am the standard. That's it.
What does that even mean?
Does anybody else get the impression that she spent all of 4 hours coming up with this speech and had been holding it in and just waiting for someone to ask her why she was single? And then when nobody asked, mainly because nobody cares, she just said that everybody was asking her so she could finally have her moment to be able to say this, thinking that it's somehow this profound and confident concept to her worth, because that's what it sounds like to me. Modern women are always thinking of these pseudo-intellectual concepts to try to make themselves sound smarter than they actually are, and usually just ends with them making massive embarrassments out of themselves by saying that they are the standard when nothing could be further from the truth. Nobody is asking you why you're single. We all know why. It's kind of obvious. Well, rest assured, lady, the feeling's mutual.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid. Now wait just a minute. And you're ugly, just like your mum.
Another thing I learned from rich, successful, smart people, especially women, about dating is this. Stay away from single dads. Just listen. Think about it. Before you freak out, think about it. They already have responsibility. They have kids, maybe multiple children. If they're younger, it's even worse. They have an ex, wife, baby mama, who knows? They have financial responsibility. They have financial responsibility for those children, that child, for 18 years, and honestly, probably longer than that. Do you think they are really looking for something serious unless they're looking for someone to mother these children and help take care of these children? They are dating selfishly because they are either looking for a maid, cook, nanny, and someone to have sex with.
Wrong! Okay, let's just go ahead and break this down. If a man is a single dad, there's a reason for it. First off, he could be a widower, and if that's the case, you're not only ignorant, you're also rather insensitive. Second, if you got the kids through a divorce, that meant the courts deemed the mother to be unfit for sole custody, and in today's court system, that practically takes an act of the intergalactic space god Mimorlagard all hail. Third, if he has joint custody, it probably means he's doing well enough that he doesn't need any help from anybody, which means that he doesn't need help financially or in the home. He's got it all covered. But for some reason, you think that this man is somehow just trying to mooch off of an innocent woman when single moms have been notorious for demanding financial compensation from any poor dude that she dates. This man isn't looking for a mother for his children, and even if he was, just trust me on this one, sister, he's not asking you. He's not about to jeopardize the future of his children by subjecting them to that kind of hell.
Or they're not looking for something serious, they're just looking to. I'm just giving you advice from experience because I've been there. I stay away from these guys. I have guys that are friends that have children that are separated, divorced, whatever. And I ask them and they tell me the truth. They're like, A, they really don't even want to get married anymore. And they're not looking for a relationship. They're not looking for a girlfriend. And these are the honest guys. These are the guys that are actually good guys because they're saying, listen, straight up, they're saying, this is all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for something serious. So if you're interested, great. If not, great. But most guys are not like that. So just be aware.
Hell no, a rule is a rule is a rule unless you're a woman.
Well, have you ever considered why these guys are not looking for anything serious? I mean, you're pretty much just demonizing these men for wanting some easygoing companionship, especially when a lot of these dads were put through the ringer by the mother of their own children. They may not be interested in something long-term because they've done that dance, and if that's the case, then you've completely destroyed your own argument. You said it yourself. You say single dads are just looking for someone to take over their household duties, even though the ones you apparently talked to straight up told you they weren't looking for that. So maybe, and I'm just spitballing here, you should probably get your talking points straight before coming online to bash single dads who have it hard enough as it is. It's just a telltale sign of a bitter woman who's been used up more than a dish sponge in a college frat house. But hey, I get it. If you're not sabotaging your lack of a love life even more than you currently are, then apparently you just have no purpose for living.
There's the door. Why don't you check it out?
Another trope about women that's especially popular with the red pill crowd is that women are the ones that are the biggest consumers of SSRIs. David Jacques has been going on and on and on. I guess that explains why single women are the biggest consumers of antidepressants, because they're winning. Nice try, sweetheart. David, this is actually common sense, but since the thing about common sense is that it's not so common, let's look at the AMA Journal of Ethics. Depression's problem with men. This is from an article in 2021. Too many men who suffer from depression remain undiagnosed. Women know this. Why don't you?
What has that got to do with it?
Gertrude, you can cherry pick all of the politically biased quotes that you want, but has it ever occurred to you as to why modern women are the biggest patrons of Big Pharma? Well, I guess you're right, common sense ain't so common because it's clearly never crossed your mind. What is the biggest reason why people take antidepressants? Well, the whole point of antidepressants is to treat depression, and that's because, much like yourself, modern women are clearly miserable. And this is a perfectly valid point which you smugly ignore because men aren't allowed to have any problems. The fact that depression runs rampant in men and goes undiagnosed means that men are having a hard time out there, and your response is just to talk smack about them. We don't talk about our problems because at best, nobody cares, and at worst, you'll just turn it around and use it as ammo to further denigrate the characters of innocent men. Now, how's that working out for you, Gertrude? Well, it's clearly obvious that you're just smiles and rainbows now, aren't you?
While men are diagnosed with depression at half the rate of women, they die by unaliving 3 to 4 times as frequently. Gendered processes of socialization affect how some boys and men express depression. Men don't go to doctors, they don't go to therapists, they don't do a single thing to take care of themselves, but also expect women to always lend them a sympathetic ear. They're so reliant on women being empathetic towards their cause. They want women to take more care of them than they're willing to care for themselves.
Man, that's just mean. That's mean, man.
Gertrude, you're forgetting something. First off, modern women use therapy as an excuse to complain about their lives. Therapy only has a chance of working if they actually have the right therapist that'll hold them accountable and they actually do the work that's required. So instead, they turn to pills to try to fix everything. Now you complain and pop a pill and think that you're somehow superior to men. And then you have the nerve to lecture men that it's wrong to open up whenever they need someone to talk to. So basically, you're just telling men that their mental health doesn't matter. So we have no choice but to face our demons and face them alone, which is an incredibly painful thing to do because you've made it clear that you're not willing to help. And it's kind of sad, but there's a lot of men out there who try and they reach the end of their ropes and then feel forced to go to extreme measures when facing that amount of unbearable pain. And instead of recognizing that men have it rough and maybe a little sympathy is in order, you need to make it about you. And for that, you are a terrible human being, Gertrude. And I would feel sorry for you, but you're not worthy of my pity. So you can go to hell for all I care. And this episode goes out to the fine members of the Bounty Board over on Patreon for their continued support of my work as I get content out to you fine folks on the internet every single day, and I cannot thank you enough. All hail! And if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out the Bounty Board over on Patreon, where $5 a month gets you access to exclusive content you won't find on YouTube. And if you're finding my particular brand of comedy is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and leave a couple of comments so we can make sure to give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you once again for checking out the new video, and until next time, peace out, homies.